Hi, and welcome back to the You Can Do More YouTube channel. Did you know that nearly 50% of the FBS recruits signed each year come from only 3 states? Do you know what those 3 states are and why this is happening? Find out the answer to that and many more questions on this week's episode, part 2 of Hey, This Thing's Not Level. Okay, a quick recap of what we talked about last week in part 1. The first thing, remember, the cost of that college degree, the value of that scholarship that you're wanting to get will be between $150,000 and $300,000 or more. So keep watching and pay attention. Part 2, nearly all colleges and universities and nearly all sports in those colleges recruit nationally to some extent. They're going to get outside their geographic area to go and find the best athletes possible, which means, point 3, you will be competing against everyone in the country that plays your sport and that plays your position in that sport for that scholarship aid. So now we're on to part 2 of, hey, this thing's not level. I want you to take a look at a couple of maps and graphs with me that I think will help illustrate that point. This map is showing where all the 1-star to 5-star recruits, and we're going to talk about those star rankings a little bit later, but this is showing where all those athletes ended up going to school. It shows where they were from and where they ended up attending. It includes years from 2002 to 2014 and includes most of the major FBS conferences in the country. This map really contains too much information to adequately illustrate my point, so let's drill down a little bit. Now this map will only show the signees from 3 years, 2012 to 2014, and only those athletes that attended school in the Mountain West Conference. Now it becomes easy to see that the Mountain West, a conference that does not have any members east of the Rocky Mountains, is getting their athletes from all over the country, and particularly from 3 areas, California, Texas, and Florida. Now when I add the athletes from those same years that signed with schools in the Big 12, a conference that has the majority of schools outside of Texas, and no schools in California and Florida, it becomes even more pronounced. While this map deals specifically with football and only FBS schools, the concentration of where athletes come from in all sports is very similar. Regardless if it's a women's sport, men's sport, there might be slight differences, but it's very similar information. Now let's look at one more graph that further illustrates this point. Now this graph shows the total recruits and shared by state from 2008 to 2013. You can see that the top 3 states, Texas, Florida, and California, if you add those percentages, accounted for 40% of the athletes that were signed in those years. 3 states accounted for 40% of the scholarships awarded. So why the concentration geographically in those 3 states? Texas, Florida, California. Well, for the first reason, part of it's an economy of scale. Those are 3 out of the 4 most populous states in the country. They've got large cities. In Texas, Houston, Dallas. In Florida, Miami, Fort Lauderdale, Tampa Bay. California's got San Diego, Los Angeles. They've got large cities, they're densely populated, and they've got excellent athletic programs. Excellent athletic programs that develop players and have great facilities. It's easy for a college coach, not easy, but it's more efficient for a college coach to go into those areas of large population with good athletic programs. They can go from school to school and be efficient with their recruiting. That's why all the schools across the country do it. And again, I want to emphasize this isn't just football. This takes place in really all sports at all levels of collegiate recruiting. Economy of scale. So colleges from all across the country are going to send recruiters into these densely populated areas. The areas of Texas, Florida, and California. These areas that have great athletic programs, that do an outstanding job of, number 1, developing student athletes, and number 2, have great facilities. Now, I am not saying that where you are right now, your school, your area, doesn't do a good job of developing student athletes or that you don't have great facilities. I'm just saying from my experience in Missouri, from my experience recruiting and seeing different areas of the country, that in these areas, it's just a little bit different. let me speak a minute on how student athletes are typically developed in these areas. And I want to really focus on Texas. I'm familiar with Texas. Like I said, my son grew up, went to school there, attended school from 7th grade through high school. So I'm familiar with how the athletes are developed in that area. In Texas, in many of these areas, when you enter 7th grade and you decide you want to participate in a sport, you're enrolled in an athletics PE class. And this is for all sports, both boys and girls. If you're going to participate in sports, you're in an athletics PE class. This PE class, when you're in season, you practice your sport during school time. When you're out of season, you train for your sport. It might be strength conditioning, it might be speed development, it might be an activity that's related specifically to your sport. But you train in the off season, and you're trained by your coach. When you go into high school, it becomes even more intense. In high school, most schools in Texas are on a block schedule, which means you have close to 2 hours. 2 hours a day when you're in sports, you can practice. 2 hours a day when your sport isn't in season, you can train. So what happens is after 6 years of being in this type of developmental program, 2 years of middle school, 4 years of high school, you end up a little bit more developed, a little bit further ahead than student athletes in a lot of the other areas in the country. And that makes you a little bit more attractive to college recruiters. So in these densely populated areas like Texas and Florida and California, a lot of schools are doing a great job of developing their student athletes, and also many athletes in these areas have access to outstanding facilities. In Texas, the last 20 years or so, there's been somewhat of an arms race going on as far as facilities. Every district in the state wants to have the best, the newest, the brightest, the shiniest, the most expensive weight room, indoor facility, stadium. Consequently, students in those districts, in many districts in Texas, have access to some of the most outstanding facilities in the country. Facilities at times that rival those found at the collegiate level. This is the weight room at Lake Travis High School. Let me do a quick rewind and add something that I think is really important here. It's not just about facilities. It's about budget, the size of the budget, coaching staff, number of coaches, coaches' salaries, equipment, technology, all of these things. Many of these districts are doing everything that they can to make sure their athletes have every opportunity to be successful. Okay, now where were we? Oh yeah, back to facilities. Now this is the weight room in Lake Travis High School. Lake Travis is just outside of Austin, Texas. Now, if your weight room looks like this, you're fortunate, you're lucky, that's awesome. But I'm guessing many of you work out in facilities that don't quite look the same. How about your indoor facility? Almost all schools in Texas have some sort of an indoor facility. This one in Kilgore, Texas, is regulation size, 100 yards long, regulation width. Now, many districts don't have one that's 100 yards long, but almost all districts have one that's 60 or 80, some sort of an indoor practice facility that's not just used by the football team, that's used by all sports for training and practice. This is the new football stadium in Allen, Texas. It was built a couple of years ago. It cost $70 million, and at the time was the most expensive high school stadium in the nation. It seats 15,000 people. This is the Dome Stadium in Frisco, Texas, the district my son grew up in. This was built in conjunction with the Dallas Cowboys for a cost of $80 million. Most of the district football games are played either in this facility or Toyota Stadium, which is the stadium for the FC Dallas soccer team. This is the basketball arena at Union High School in Tulsa, Oklahoma. It seats 5,000 people, and it's a basketball-only arena. At a time when many school districts across the country are implementing an activities fee where families have to pay in order to participate in sports, the Frisco School District recently signed a close to $2 million apparel deal with Nike. Now, I'm not trying to be a negative or a downer, telling you all these statistics and showing you all these pictures of fancy facilities. I'm not trying to say your cause is hopeless, you don't have a chance to get recruited. That's definitely not the case. But I do want to be realistic. And I think it's important that you understand that you will be competing against many students who have advantages you do not have. The recruiting playing field is not level, and you've got to level it up. How do you do that? How do you go about doing that? You've got to do everything in your power to make yourself a remarkable product, to make yourself a recruitable, remarkable student athlete. Once you've done that, once you do that, then you've got to market that remarkable product that is you. And I'm here to help you with both of those things. As always, thank you for taking the time to watch the You Can Do More channel. I really appreciate you allowing me to join you and your family on this recruiting journey. As always, I hope you can do just these 2 or 3 simple things to help me. Number 1, subscribe to the channel. Just click on that button. Like the video, give it a thumbs up. Leave a comment or question. If you have any questions, just leave it down below. And remember, if you become a patron, you're really helping me continue this project, and you're also helping yourself because you unlock additional content that's not found on this YouTube channel. Next week, the science of recruiting. Have a good week. We'll see you next week. Good luck. Work hard.